everyone, how are you? Today I'm going to be chatting to Suzanne Daniels. So just give me a second while I invite her. So we're just waiting for my guest, Suzanne Daniels. Uh, I'm hoping that this week we don't have any connectivity issues. Hi, Suzanne.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Am I connected?
You are connected and I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can.
Okay, cool. So let's hope that it stays that way for the next hour at least. But welcome, Suzanne. I see there's so many people. I'm going to give it like a few seconds for people to start joining. But for those people that have not read Suzanne's bio, Suzanne has been through a lot in her life. And she's definitely one of those people that have inspired me. So to start off, Suzanne is a South African lawyer who's currently living in California. She had many positions in South Africa. She even went up to. I'm going to actually read this because there's a lot here in terms of all of your achievements in your bio. So she's been in the legal profession for over 15 years. She had many different positions, including being a board advisor as well as general counsel. She has become famous or infamous, we could say, for being the former head of legal at ESCOM. But she's one of the instrumental people that testified against state capture in the Zono Commission. But that's just one aspect of her life. I see Emma has joined the call as well, so I will tell you who Emma is. Emma is Suzanne is a single mother. Emma is a daughter. Emma is blind. She was born blind. And today, and one of the reasons why Suzanne is in California is because Emma, despite being blind, she managed to graduate from the New York Film Academy with a degree in acting, which I think is actually phenomenal. I see you've got a lot of fans here, Suzanne. I see passionate and saying inspirational. And this is just like, the tip of the iceberg, because I've spoken to you before to know everything. And currently, Suzanne's own multiple businesses, and now she's currently also an international lawyer and a business consultant as well. And I feel, and as if that's not enough, you have recently also released a biographical book. You've been one of the authors, and the book is called Nomad CEOs, and it's been released on Amazon as well if you're interested, and it features stories of CEOs who run their businesses all over the world. So, Suzanne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a very busy lady as well. I know you're currently in California, so I think it's about 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. your time as well, so morning. So Suzanne, you've got such a big, there's so many achievements, so many successes, so many difficulties and hardships. Can you tell us what is it? How have you become so successful? What do you think it is that has helped you along the way in your journey?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult thing to say. I think I was brought up by a strong woman. And I was, growing, well, interestingly, I didn't really think about this, but we actually grew up in apartheid South Africa. So there were already issues that we had to overcome as kids, and we didn't even know it. And I think that's where the perseverance comes from. I don't think that, but for that kind of experience, I went through boycotts and police issues very early in my teenage years. So I think that gives you kind of a extra layer of perseverance and determination. And I was also determined to, make a success of my life. Okay, obviously, my success, my version of success, my definition of success has changed over the years. But when I started out, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be in practice, and those things. Obviously, as life happens, you change your perspective. So I think that's it, and also just wanting to be the best person that I can possibly be for me is what keeps me going.
So I mean, there's just so many aspects, and I don't think that we're going to get to, all of them. But I think and you speak actually about, apartheid, South Africa, and stuff, and having to go through that. Do you think that that's one of the reasons that motivated you to actually go into law in the first place?
Yes, I actually did when I wanted to be able to. I wanted to be a human rights lawyer at one point in my life. And I did actually do quite a bit of human rights law in the early part of my career. I actually started out working in the Steenberg Legal Aid Clinic when I was still a student. So I've done that. I wanted to make sure that women are empowered. I dealt with a lot of family violence cases in my early career. So it is just emotionally draining, but that is where it started. And then obviously as one progresses, I ended up in contracts law, but that was much later on. So yes, it inspired me. I wanted to be able to, be fully aware of my rights.
So that's great. And so I know, so like this is not a political platform or anything, but I think a lot of people know you for, for your role in the Zondo Commission, and you're one of those key people that actually testified against them. And I think that I don't want to go into the whistleblowing aspect because I think that's a whole different sort of topic for another time, and maybe something that we can do down the line. But for today, I think that it was for you specifically. I know that changed your life, and that it required a lot of bravery on your end and boldness. And I think my question to you is, how did you actually manage to build that bravery and also deal with all of the hardships that came along with, I know that you like being harassed by the media and all of those kinds of things. Like, can you tell us about a bit about that?
I think I didn't consider myself brave at the time. The decision was driven by I must do what is right. And I think it was a bit overwhelming in the beginning. The mental and physical stress was quite heavy. I had the support of my family, and a few friends, and obviously I was looked after medically. But I think, just getting through it. I mean, there were some days, it's a dark experience. It was devastating on my life. It really took, it's really taken a while. I think I've only sort of now becoming to feel like a human being again. Not constantly harassed and things like that. So it has had a devastating impact, a dramatic change of turn of events in my life. But if you put one foot in front of the other, you continue.
And tell me something, like you mentioned, like like it changed your life dramatically, right? What do you mean by that? Like how did it change your life?
Well, went from high profile career to being treated like a criminal. So that's quite a I think I lived in isolation for quite a while. I didn't want to go near. I was too scared. Lived in fear for quite a while. And you know, and you lose your friends dramatically. Um, so it was a lonely period. Um, it was also, but for the support of my family, and my daughter was away. So yeah, it was hard. It was not easy.
And I can imagine that. And tell me something like, what kind of lessons do you think you've learned from that experience? Because I think there's a lot of pain, but with pain also comes learnings. And what kind of lessons would you say has come out of that devastating experience for you?
Uh, I think learning the value of, authentic relationships. Um, and it's sort of very easily, that kind of experience very clearly shows you what kind of people you have in your circle. It actually tests the kind of network that you have. In my own case, it made me look at, the kind of values that I have. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? And those kinds of things. So I think it gave me an opportunity to reflect as well. Do I want to spend the rest of my life in the corporate environment? What do I want to do from a work perspective? How do I want to frame my own family life going forward? Because I'm a single mom, my daughter's now graduated. What does that do for me in terms of how do I want to live the rest of my life? I celebrated my birthday on Monday.
On Monday, yes, yes.
Um,
Happy birthday. I mean, I did tell you happy birthday, but I hope you had
thank
a lovely day.
Yes, I did. It was actually the first time that my daughter and I were together for 2 years, so it was very nice for
Oh, wow.
birthdays. Um, so it does make you look at things a little bit differently. I think my values, it was later on in my life, so my values haven't changed in terms of, I think it's more about perspective and what is important and what isn't.
And while you were going through all this, you also had, I mean, while you were like moving up in the career um, world, you also had a daughter. You also had Emma, and can you tell us a little bit about like what was that? And was Emma born blind?
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
And how tell me, what is it like being a mother of, a special needs child, and how is that different? What kind of struggles did you go through?
Um, it's very intense, I have come to realize. Not that parenting isn't intense, but this just adds another level of intensity. Um, I think the hardship for me was that there wasn't very much support in the kinds of services that they are available for children with special needs. And often now when I look back, I think, oh my gosh, how did we do that? It was a first in many ways. So, there weren't many lessons or people I could draw on because at the time, I think there was more focus on uh, people with adults with visual impairments rather than children. So there was very little services provided. The services that were available were quite, far spread in the country. They also isolated the children. So the children would be like, I think in when I lived in Cape Town at the time when Emma was born. The nearest sort of full center was in Worcester, and I wasn't prepared to
Oh,
send
wow.
Emma to Worcester as young as she was, and there's a center in Grassy Park and those places,
Mm.
but it's still isolated. the children are in their own little bubble. And I didn't want that for Emma. So I went about developing my own program for her.
But tell me something. So firstly, it was very isolating in the sense that you found that there wasn't a lot of support, especially for children. And so as a mother, as a new mother, still figuring out parenthood, still like climbing the career ladder, how did you, and feeling isolated. So how did you know where to draw from? Like, now from not having much support to Emma now actually graduating from one of the one of the top acting universities in the US. I mean, that must have been a big journey, sorry, for you. I think sort of, if you have a kid and, they have some kind of impairment or something, it's very easy for a parent to go, okay, well, there's not much we can do. My child's blind. That means that our options are limited. But you didn't do that. You actually didn't view Emma's future as that our options are limited. And talk us through that. Your thinking around that, and what was your experiences, and what motivated you to actually, make sure that Emma actually has a fulfilling life, and that this doesn't get into her way.
I think the most defining moment for me was when the doctor told me she was blind. She was a couple of hours old, and the specialist was called in, and he said to me, he was very hesitant to tell me that she was blind. Obviously, because it was just a few hours into her first day on Earth.
Wow.
And the other thing is that I didn't know that she was blind because it was not a genetic issue, it was a developmental issue, so it wasn't picked up in all those fancy scans we go through.
Wow.
So it was only when she was born that, I picked up, I actually said to the doctor, there's something wrong and please get a specialist. So when the specialist arrived and he did all his tests and now he needed to tell me what he found, he was like, humming and hawing. And then he said to me that she's blind and that she's going to, I distinctly remember she said she's going to require physical therapy, speech therapy, and all sorts of other therapies. And I said to him, at that moment, it was not even thought, it was just an instinctive reaction. I said to him, in typical lawyer fashion, I said, the last time I looked, blindness meant you can't see. Why do we need all these therapies? And he said, well, she's blind. So that's when I said, well, in my book, blindness means you can't see. And I then said that I would not keep the medical profession in business.
Wow.
I was going to raise a child who is blind, not a blind child. And
wow.
that became, I didn't realize it at the time, but that became my sort of guiding principle. And, obviously, I will not say that it was easy, and I will not say that, I didn't go through all the emotions of why me. I did. It's, why me? I didn't know the first thing about raising a child, and now I still have a child who has special needs. What the heck does that mean? I'd actually been retrenched.
Sure.
I think 2 months before Emma was born. So, it was that kind of like, Lord, why me?
Wow.
But I got to spend about a year at home with Emma. So that was good. What it helped me to do was I used my lawyer skills and did lots of research. I researched about babies with special needs, babies who were born blind. there were not many books who wrote about what the children could do. They all wrote about what they couldn't do. So I did
Wow.
my own bit of reverse engineering and sort of said, okay, if they say, for example, the child is antisocial, what causes the antisocial behavior? Obviously, it's neglect and not being stimulated and all of that. So I then went about finding ways to stimulate Emma. And so I used to talk to her a lot, play games with her, and things like that. So that's how I dealt with it very practically, to make sure that she would be able to cope in sort of, for want of a better word, a normal world, in a sighted world. And with like things like physical therapy, I replaced it with, she learned to swim very early on, so that we also did that. We started swimming classes from about 3 months old, so that she could
Wow.
learn those things. And she did dance, she did all sorts of things when she was younger. She went to the best investment I also did was, she went to a Montessori school, and she started there at 18 months, at 16 months, and she stayed there until she went to school. And I think that was also good, because the Montessori way is tactile and and helped. And I must say that I had help with the teachers, in terms of adapting the programs for her. So that
So
was the
that
early life.
but that's still amazing because I mean you probably had a lot of people telling you that there are all these limitations, but it's like you refuse to actually let those limitations get into the way. And I do think that I mean it's so easy. I mean, like you said, you were retrenched at the time. You know, your first time parent, which is already overwhelming on its own, and now to find out after you give birth that your child is blind and to have to go through that, and then to also be told by doctors and specialists that you know what, your child's going to need this therapy and that therapy, and then everyone telling you that your child is sort of limited or incapacitated, and for you to actually, didn't you feel like you were fighting against the world, or that didn't you
Um,
feel like lonely?
it was at the time. It I suppose it oh gosh, it was hard. I think, you're right, listening to people saying, they always focused on a shame she's blind. And it took me a while. That's why I said it actually wasn't a bed of roses, but she was such a bubbly child, and I decided to focus on her and the positive people in my life, instead of because you actually can't fight that degree of negativity, and it's pointless in terms of energy. So I think once you get clear on what you want to do, and I was very clear that I wanted to provide an environment for my baby in which she could thrive, and whatever that meant. So whether it's having me as a happy parent, talking to her, those kinds of things. So I focused on those things. And like I said, I was lucky that I was able to do so because I was at home, so I could be the full-time mommy at that time. So for me, the retrenchment, yes, it was devastating, but it actually provided me the time to be with my baby. And to actually give her the kind of foundation that we could, rely on later on.
And I know that a lot of people, that have special needs, kids, say that they get very frustrated with how other people respond to their children. Sometimes people go, "Oh, shame," you see pity in their eyes. And I wanted to know from you, is that something you experience? And if Okay, I know the answer already. Um, and how would you have wished people would respond to your child instead, if that's what they did?
Um, you know what? That's what I said to you. You learn to pick your battles. Um,
Mhm.
I started saying to people, um, you know, but it took a while. So what are you saying shame about? You know,
Mhm.
you don't know anything because it's an incredible invasion into your privacy as well. To be walking in a public place and then someone
Mhm.
says, "Oh, shame! What's wrong with the baby? What's this? What's this?" You don't go up to people and ask those kind of questions. In normal circumstances. So it takes a while for one to develop that thick skin. I
Mhm.
just decided. I mean, sometimes I would go home very angry and cry. Um, and other times I would just laugh it off. So, you learn to live with it. I just made sure that it did not affect Emma, negativity. Um, and strangely enough, she sort of said, "Why would they say that?" And then I would say to her, "Because you can't see. Those are the kinds of things that they are saying." So we developed very early on a good communication channel, and I would always be honest with her as to what it was about. I think don't sugarcoat it for your child, because they're gonna learn that the world is harsh,
Mhm.
and more so for them. So they need to learn those coping skills. So I discussed it with her when she asked. I was very honest when she asked those questions. Obviously age appropriate, but I did not sugarcoat the kinds of issues that we were dealing with.
So I was about to ask you the same question now, but I see there's a question here from Tash Chapman, and she says, "What advice would you give other parents who have children that have different needs?"
What does that mean? Just clarify
Uh,
for
So,
me.
so, so I'm guessing. So basically, what advice would you give parents who have kids with special needs or a disability or something? Um, what would be what are some of your
It's
learnings that
okay.
you can give
My
them? What do you wish
okay.
you knew?
My learnings were that it's not a reflection on you as a person. It's not an affliction. For whatever reason, you were chosen to be the parent of that particular baby. I think it's important that you have good emotional support as a parent. Don't lose your identity as a parent. Um, it is all consuming. You spent your life hunting for a diagnosis or trying to fix it. I very early on decided that I'm not going to fix it, in the sense that I'm not going to try and make Emma see, because for her, if we needed to do, like, uh, get her sight, then she would have to go through eye transplants, and that was not successful at the time. It still isn't successful, and it's also another emotional burden. You'd spend your life in surgery, and I was rather um, keen to focus on developing a child, um, and helping her, through life and be a parent. So I think that is some of the advice. Once you've gotten a diagnosis, I know it's hard. Look, it's by no means easy. I spent a lot of time with psychologists getting through my own issues. And you also have to learn to cope with the negativity of people who don't understand, because they're going to ask you, what did you do during your pregnancy? What did you do wrong? Because it's always
Oh
like,
wow!
what did you eat? All of those things. And
Oh,
don't take on other people's insecurity. I think, because that rubs off on you, it also rubs off on your child, you know, and then you start your own negative cycle in your own world, and they move on, but you stuck with it. So don't take on that responsibility, and that negativity. It's very important when they're young, and also decide, you know, be realistic about what your child can or cannot do. Um, it was trial and error for me. It's not that I said that she can do anything, but I did instill the mindset in her that she can do anything that she could put her mind to. You know, she was very well aware that she was blind from a young age, because obviously everybody wanted to know, why can't Emma see, you know, and those kinds of things. So she was well aware. I didn't hide it from her that she was different from other children, but that difference was who she was, and who she is today. So it's not, if I look back, there are probably some things I would do differently. But I think it's important that, firstly, that you as a parent decide what kind of parent you're going to be, and what kind of child you want to raise, you know. And I think that will help. And don't be too hard on yourself. It does change. You know, circumstances change, medical developments change. But don't make the medical diagnosis the center of your child's life.
Wow. Wow. So you said a lot there. Firstly, I'm very shocked that you have people that are asking you, what did you do wrong, when, you know, when you're really dealing with so much. I'm sure that the intention was not to hurt you, but it is quite insensitive to say that to somebody that's really going through trying to be a good parent, trying to create a good environment, a conducive environment where be asked, what did you do wrong? So I think that that's very important. I think that even if you're not a person or a parent with a special needs child, that it's important to also think about how we approach other people that do have special needs, and to maybe be a little bit more sensitive around that as well. But I also like the fact that you know that you talk about. So it sounds like it's very easy to sort of blame yourself for that, and that it's something that you actually have to remind yourself that, you know, to not be so hard on yourself when dealing with that. So it's a lot, and I think, and I mean, today you have a kid that, you know, graduated from college as well. And I think you can be very proud as a mother to know that you did something right to have Emma actually pursue her dreams.
Yes,
So
I'm very proud. What makes it even more special is that, you know, the doctor said that she would be like 6 months behind everybody else, developmentally. And she graduated summa cum laude.
wow.
So,
So
so
not
I'm
only wow, not
very
only
proud of
is
her.
she wow, that is amazing, because I mean, not only did she manage to graduate college, which is really an achievement, she managed to do that with flying colors as well. So that's definitely something you can be very proud of. And it's really a testament to like not letting your circumstances define you. And it also shows, like, as a parent, you know, it's what you cultivate grows as well. And if you had to sort of focus on the blindness, it might not, you know, she might not have, you know, gotten that own sort of self-confidence to achieve so well. So that's really amazing. Suzanne, we've got like 25 minutes left, and I also want to chat about, we've spoken about your past, we've spoken about the, you know, being a mother of a special needs child that's doing amazingly. And I also just want to talk a little bit about sort of what you're currently doing. But let me start off with your book. Can you tell us a little bit about your book that I know just got released like a few days ago?
The book was released on Amazon on the 13th of August. It's about nomads. It's called Nomads. It focuses, there are 16 women contributing authors in the book, and we all wrote about what it's like to run a business while traveling. As you said, I now live in Los Angeles. I live here with Emma, and I had to obviously move my business online so that I can work from wherever I am. And my story in the book is called One Way Ticket to Hollywood. And
That's
it
very cool.
actually it actually tells you a little bit about the story of Emma and how we got from South Africa to Hollywood.
Oh, that's very exciting. And also, I mean, so you're talking about businesses online. Tell us a little bit about what your current business is. I know you had multiple businesses. What are you currently busy with?
Okay, so what I had to do was, as you know, it's a worldwide issue. COVID impacted the way one earns and lives, and I looked at all the skills that I've acquired over the years and decided to leverage that experience and offer legal and business consulting services to people. Interestingly enough, I started getting clients across the globe. So at the moment, I have clients in Europe, India, and I think some are in the US and Canada. So it's become a global issue, which is very exciting because I'm learning all the time. It's definitely not boring. But I decided to leverage what I know, and that is using my legal skills. So they're not wasted. What I've also done now is focus on how do you protect your assets. And assets are not just physical assets, they are your intellectual property because a lot of businesses are online. IP protection and cybersecurity have become like top of mind for CEOs, so putting in those kinds of systems, etc. And then on the family side is how do you protect your family? So I have also now developing a legacy planning arm. And it's very interesting. There's quite a large South African community in the US, and I've actually been helping, starting to help there in managing affairs in South Africa and navigating the US system. So it's become quite interesting to see how the possibilities are opening up.
Oh wow, so that's quite interesting actually. It sounds like I mean that's quite interesting because you have all of the knowledge of South Africa and now you're living in the US, so you have knowledge about the US market as well. And tell me something like how did you manage to get international clients? I mean how like
Um,
because you say
it was very it was very interesting. Because of my whistleblowing experience, it was extremely hard to find a job in South Africa. And it was and that's why I'm smiling because it was very interesting. I made a decision that I did not want South African clients. It wasn't COVID related. It was more, I was tired of going through, I think I posted about it. I went through thousands of interviews, sent out thousands of job applications, but all people wanted to hear about is obviously the experience. And so I found this very emotionally draining and just a waste of time and money, because sending out these things, going for interviews, all of those things. So it was just, I literally sat down and I was having a conversation with my mom. And it was interesting because it was her birthday. So this was in December 2019. Yes, 2019. And I said to her, that I am not going to focus on the South African market anymore, which is like, oh my goodness, that's huge. But okay, let's see. And I used LinkedIn, I used my social media, and got my first client through my social media. And that is how I started. And this was my client in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and who actually needed services in South Africa at the time. So it was interesting, but they were based across there. Um, so that's how it started. A decision I hadn't thought out how it was going to work, you know. Basically, I've been refining it as I go along and learning, and also having moved from South Africa to here, navigating the
Yes.
US system, getting all of that in place. So it was very interesting. So I think the lesson for me was, you know, don't wait until everything is perfect. Just start. And then, you know, make sure that you are willing to learn, that you are adaptable. And the world is changing at a fast pace right now because of all the demands. So, you know, it's actually ideal. But that's how it started.
And it was just before COVID, actually. So it's almost like you were ahead of the curve.
Um, well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I was, you know, COVID still came. I still suffered some bumps with COVID, because I had an Airbnb business in South Africa, and COVID just wiped that out totally. So, you know, it was quite devastating. But it's had an effect on all businesses. So I just made sure that we can, you know, learn from those things.
And tell me, what are some of the challenges of having an online business?
I think the biggest one that I'm having right now is the fatigue that comes with sitting in front of a computer screen all the time. That's a new thing that one has to learn to manage on a practical level, because the temptation is to sit. You know, you can sit for hours and then you look up. What I've discovered lately that I have my eyes burn. I have lots of eye-related issues, so I have to take breaks. I don't find, because before the online boom, for want of a better word, I did do a lot of Zoom calls. But now we're spending like 8 hours in front of a TV screen, so be careful about that. Um, Sometimes, you know, I miss the office interaction where you have someone in there. So I've built in specific social mechanisms, even though it's online, but we speak audio or, you know, things like that, to make it easier.
I see. And and so now that, okay, obviously, because if you have international clients, you're staying online. And so you're used to having your business online. You're not looking at sort of once the world settles, hopefully. Um, do you enjoy besides that? So those are some of the challenges. What are some of the perks of having your businesses online?
I think that I can manage, well, I'm still learning. It's very difficult to manage my time, because you tempted to be all available. So I started blocking my time. I think the one challenge was also navigating the time differences, the time zone migrations and things like that. That was difficult in the beginning. And you know, it's hard when you're on your own, to be disciplined every day. So one has to just go with the flow sometimes. I've learned to be a lot less hard on myself.
Okay. I think with the pandemic, I think a lot of people are sort of starting to question. I know I am actually starting to question also, like how much pressure should we like put on ourselves, especially with all the difficulties of living in a pandemic as well. I think this whole idea around self-care is coming up, and sort of not being hard on ourselves. And tell me, in your opinion, like, what are some of, I mean, is that something that you also buy into, like self-care and looking after yourself? And what are some of the things you do in order to make sure that you are doing okay?
Oh, definitely. I think in my case, I have office hours.
Okay.
Just number one, I've gotten very clear on those things. I've also, it's okay to take a day off. It's okay to sleep late. You know, self-care is not a luxury. Um, but I've known, for me, I've known that before COVID, and COVID has just reinforced that self-care is, because in the corporate world, you actually, if you think about it, you have to sell your soul to be in a certain environment, and you have to be a particular way. Um, and I think what COVID has taught us is that is really not necessary. That actually is sort of added pressure. But you still need to look after yourself, because I think now the added stress of not being able to socialize in a manner that you used to, it's not spontaneous anymore. Those kinds of things add another stress. So Emma and I do things together which do not involve a TV screen. We actually chat more. It's nice to have those face-to-face chats. We, spend some time outside when we can, and in a safe environment. So I think it's just important to look at how you can, sort of reinforce your soul and stuff. I also read. I'm thinking of writing another book, although it's painful. Um, but those are the kinds of things that I would do.
So tell me, this book that you're thinking of writing, what would it be about?
Well, documenting Emma and I's journey, a bit more. Obviously, in the book, I can't say much. It was just sort of let's say, an executive summary of Emma's journey. So I think there were lots of lessons that actually I had forgotten about, and that I think would be useful to other parents, and just a positive story instead of just negativity.
Well, I fully encourage you to write that book. I mean, like you said, when as a mother, you found that you didn't have, there was all these books and specialists telling you what you can't do, but there weren't many people telling you what you can do. And so maybe you can be one of those voices telling parents and people with special needs what they can do.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. There are some valuable lessons that we've learned. And the good, the bad, and the ugly would be great to share with the rest of the world.
I see. And you also just mentioned now that one of your self-care rituals is also reading. So what are some of your favorite books?
I kind of read all sorts of things. I used to read lots of crime novels. Now I watch them on Netflix. I have been reading a lot about sort of self-empowerment books, and just things that calm me. There's no particular author. It depends what gets my attention. I've also been reading a lot about other people's experiences. Now that I have the time to do such things.
I see. And the self-empowerment books, can you name one or two of them for anyone that might be interested in?
Well, I read lots of books by Valerie Burton, and I follow Mel Robbins.
Okay.
Those two ladies, and then for business, there's quite a few that I read. you'll see I follow quite a few people. Like there's the unstoppable entrepreneur Kelly Roach. There's Ryan Dowdy, who teaches you about sales. Sales online, which is a whole new field. And, I'm trying to find more women role models rather than reading the male books. So that's my new exploratory area.
So that's good. Maybe you can be one of those women as well.
One day.
This is Suzanne. We're coming to a close now. So I'm going to ask for anyone that's on the call, if you have any questions to ask Suzanne, please do post them in the chat. I'm going to sort of wind down now. So, I mean, we've spoken a little about a bit of everything. I think did you hear me?
No, I didn't. Sorry,
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No worries.
No worries. So actually, I see a question came up. So before I ask you that, let me ask you the question. Tash Chapman asks, who inspires you?
Oh gosh. There are people like my mom. I must say, who inspires me. It's not always all glamorous, but she keeps going, and I draw on that strength. We even though we're so far apart, we speak. My sisters as well, they inspire me because they have had to reinvent themselves. They were chefs in the tourist industries, and they've had to reinvent themselves in this period. My daughter inspires me as well because of her own tenacity. We've been sharing about living abroad on your own. It's been hard as well, even though she had a caregiver. It wasn't there's no family support. I've spoken about the business role models. I think, I have, that's also, perspective has changed, other than the normal global figures, in terms of day-to-day living and day-to-day coping. I think I draw my inspiration from my family and friends.
That's great. And I mean, like you said, it doesn't need to be someone glamorous either. And I do think like somebody like Emma is very inspirational. Being able to achieve what she has. So that's great. And so my last question to you is, what advice would you give your younger self?
I think it is be the best version of you. And also just strive to be 1% better today than what you were yesterday. And you'd be surprised at how much progress you make. And don't limit it to just material things.
So that's lovely. So be 1% better than you were yesterday. Nice. Whoopsie. I see there's a lot of hearts coming through. So everyone, so thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I honestly think I don't think you see yourself as inspirational or brave and stuff, but I honestly think you are. I wish you all the best, especially with your business venture. I wish Emma well with her acting career as well, and keep on doing that. And I look forward to reading your book when it comes out.
Thank you. And I shall keep posting. You can follow me and I'll keep posting, but we follow each other, so you'll see. for all the developments. And thank you for all the hearts and all the people that joined today.
It's a pleasure. And Suzanne, just one last thing. If people want to contact you, where can they contact you? I will also post it on this video as well.
You can contact me on Instagram. I've also got what's it called? IG, Instagram. I'm starting to use it more often. So you can DM me there. You can find me on Facebook as well. So, you know, I am available.
That's awesome. And I see that Tash Chapman says, thank you for sharing with us. You're amazing, authentic, and a wonderful role model. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, but thank you, Suzanne. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was lovely speaking to you.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Lubna, for having me on your show.
It's a pleasure. The pleasure's mine, actually. So keep well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to end this. And that actually is a wrap for the Wonderful Women series. I really enjoyed it. And I see that there's been a lot of positive feedback. And I'll think about that a little bit more. But thank you to everyone. I learned something from each and every woman that featured on here. And I hope you learned something too. Thanks. See you guys. Bye-bye.